What's up, Chris?
What's going on, Jay?
It has been a freeze fest down here in Florida.
That's right. Yeah, here in Texas as well. So
Yeah,
it's nice to be warming up, moving around a little bit,
for
talking
sure.
about uh talking about all things e-commerce with you today.
Yeah, so today we're going to get into something that trips up almost every e commerce brand at some point: the gap between profits on paper and cash in the bank.
Yeah, like we've talked about on the show, what feels like hundreds of times, a business can look healthy on the P&L and still feel like it's constantly gasping for air. I mean, we just did whatever it is, 3 episodes around cash flow, right? Inventory is
Exactly.
paid for months before the revenue shows up. Ad spend hits right away. Payroll, freight, taxes, they all just come right at once. Meanwhile, payouts are dribbling in late and inconsistently, right? Those are big problems.
For sure. And founders are always asking the dangerous question: how can I be profitable and still be broke?
And most of the time, the answer isn't that the business is failing, it's that the cash timing is broken. That's what we've been talking about. And the tools that they're using are backwards looking, so they're looking in the past.
Yeah, and that's why this topic I'm really super excited today because we have a guest, and
Yes!
we started this arc, and it's like, you know what? We need to talk cash flow tools, and who
That's
else
right.
but Blaine Bertsch of Dryrun. So let's bring
Yeah.
Blaine in. How you doing, Blaine?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited. I love
Yeah,
chatting about cash flow and love chatting with you guys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Wonderful. Well, for those of you that don't know, and Blaine, I'm sure can tell us can give the better spiel because it's his product. But Dryrun is a cash flow forecasting platform built specifically to help operators see what's coming before that fire drill that we just talked about, before all of those cash demands become overwhelming. It's not just accounting reports. It's not just historical dashboards. Although I think Blaine, you and the team are working on making sure some of that stuff's easy to find as well. But most importantly, it's actual forward-looking cash visibility.
yeah. So Blaine, you've worked with thousands of founders across e-commerce, SaaS services. Let's start here. Why do you see so many profitable e-commerce brands still running into cash crises? And what are they fundamentally misunderstanding? And what do they need to understand about money, how it actually moves through their business?
Yeah, the it comes down to timing, and even mentioned with SaaS companies, with project based companies, with all sorts of companies that run into cash flow problems. Generally, the bigger the problems they have is just the bigger the timing issues. And e-commerce is an area that is obviously affected massively by timing issues because you have to buy your product, or sometimes you have to actually get it produced. You have to put money out, and then you have to put more money out, then you got to put more money out, and then finally you can start selling. And once you start selling, you don't sell it all generally in one day. It takes time to sell, and you got money trickling in, and then big bills to buy more inventory. And so timing is just one of those massive issues. And one of the things I'm thinking way back here, because I wrote a book, oh boy, a lot of years ago now. And But one of the stats in the book, and I hope I have the actual percentage right, but as far as I remember, it was 70% of the businesses that fail were profitable on paper when they failed.
Yeah.
So you can fail even though your financial statements are telling you that you're profitable. So that's how important cash flow is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Blaine, we've talked about that exact metric on the show before, and I think it's even getting worse. I think it's now up to 80% of businesses are
Oh
failing.
wow.
Because of cash flow issues, not because of profitability. And that actually leads
Yeah.
Blaine into the question that I'd love to ask first. We talked about that, right? Most founders are living in their P&L. They're seeing the
Mhm.
revenue in, they're seeing the expenses out, and they assume that profitability is safety. But when you look at e-commerce brands specifically, what's that first blind spot that starts to miss this part, right? Where you once you get past the revenue and the gross margin, like what's the first indicator to someone that, oh wait, maybe this isn't, maybe I've got some problems coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times people wait too long and they run from their bank account, and that is one of the scariest things you can do, because you look at your account today and you forget, oh yeah, but I wrote a check, or maybe you've actually booked like for an e-transfer going out tomorrow or next week to pay for something, and you forgot about it. Yeah, okay, well, that's one. But what happens when there's 20 transactions, some coming in, deposits from your bank, and you kind of know they're coming, some going out, and you kind of know they're going out, and somewhere in there that timing, fails, and you run out of cash, right? You end up with a
Yeah.
shortfall. And going back to this example I used in my book years ago, but it's such a example that seems to hit people really hard. The example I give is that it's like stepping off the curb in front of a bus. If that bus is 5 feet away, you get run over. If that bus is 3 blocks away, you got all kinds of options. Do you cross the road? Do you go back? And it's the same thing with cash flow. Companies think that or oftentimes founders think it's just part of business. It's just cash flow is part of life. You live and die by it. But if you can see far enough out what's happening, you have time to react. You have time to make better decisions. Because how many times have we seen founders look at their bank account, look at their P&L, and say, "This is a perfect time to go buy 100,000 in inventory." No, it's actually a very, very bad time. But you didn't realize it was a very bad time. And then conversely, there's other times where, yeah, it doesn't look right, but boy, we've got a lot. We actually have really good cash on hand, and I can go and buy some inventory. And if I add a little more, I can actually get a bit of a discount. It's going to give me a little bit more of a margin. You have to be able to see into the future to be able to see when you're potentially in trouble, when you shouldn't buy things, but also at times, when can I deploy this capital? This is a really good time to do this, to expand or to grow, or to, again, like buy inventory that you maybe need, but you're trying to delay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Jay, that leads into some questions around inventory. We talked about this a whole bunch of times on the show.
For sure.
Why does inventory planning break cash flow so consistently? Like, is there an underlying problem there, even for those experienced operators? Jay, yeah, any thoughts?
Well, let's hit on something that Blaine just said there.
Yeah.
You're looking at your inventory purchase, and it's like, okay, can I get it a little cheaper if I buy a little bit more of it? So it's like you have to have the ability to run different scenarios and know what is it going to cost me, what's the benefit, and what's the timing of all of those things. That's the big constraint with inventory. And, right now they just announced that the trade deficit is growing, which means our tariff's going to increase again. And I say that because tariffs are important to look at in this calculation, because we're overlooking the tariffs when we're placing the orders. And that is it's not an impact today, but it's an impact when you want to get that order shipped. Because in order to get your product that you need, and let's just assume the product is coming from China or coming from somewhere in the East, you have 120, maybe 150 day lead time on that, which means you are placing an order 6 months in advance. And to do that, most of the time you have to put half of that purchase order down with the order, and then you have to put the other half down when it ships. So you have output cash for 100% of the inventory purchase, probably a month or a month and a half before you're going to see a dime for it. So that is a huge timing lag, and it makes a huge difference. And and then let's not even talk about over ordering at this point. So you order 2 years worth of merchandise. Well, place a couple extra purchase orders there, so you're not sitting on all that cash in the warehouse.
Right.
I was actually going to jump in just on that exact thing. Is that's one of the chronic issues we see, is that it is over ordering. And it's like, oh, I did get a bit of a discount, I'm going to buy more and more and more. And sometimes the sales forecast is one of the things that'll give them the biggest dose of reality when they look at, okay, what does my forecast look like compared to the last few years? If it grows a little bit, what am I looking at? And then go, wow, turns out I have 6 years worth of stuff on the shelf sitting there, and it probably won't even be like, it could be old and crumbling before we actually could sell it.
Yeah, before
Yeah.
you get a
A
chance.
massive issue that oftentimes people don't see because they're not thinking how it all ties together from a sales perspective and everything else as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and I just want to add one more thing there, Chris. So I've been looking at Sin 7's Foresight AI, and I'm looking at inventory on hand that is like they don't need to place an order for 2 years. They have enough, and they're still ordering. It's like, okay, let's take this into account. Let's help that cash flow out. Let's maybe not overstock because maybe it becomes obsolete at some point. So, and that's the other issue you have to look at. Did you buy too much, and now is it one of those items that is past its prime? So, there
Right.
are a lot of different factors at play there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some of the things that you can do are use tools like Dryrun to help you model some of that inventory purchasing timing and some of those cash outlays. And so, Blaine, when folks get in there and they start to do that first model of when their inventory purchases fall and what it looks like when they've actually laid everything out on a timeline, are there some things that usually stick out as surprises or unexpected stuff when someone actually gets that actual visibility that we're talking about here?
Yeah, and I wish I could be more positive about this, but when we find people have not been forecasting properly, oftentimes it's a bit of a nasty surprise because they'll start forecasting and say, "Oh boy, we fortunately we looked now, but we got a bit of a problem coming up," and that tends to be more so than, "Wow, it turns out we're going to have a bunch of extra cash on hand." That isn't nearly as common. Um, but it is always the start today, and the things that I almost always recommend is start today and keep it simple, because
Right.
they're going from generally a very modest or no forecast to sometimes it's like, well, what's the penultimate forecast that has every lever and switch I can possibly ever think of, and it basically is too big of a lift and never gets done. It's like, what do you need to know? What do you need to know in the next 6 months? Let's get you going, get it going fast, get it going straightforward, and let it evolve as you start to understand what you truly need, rather than it's perfect or nothing is usually a bit of a mistake we see made.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that that's true. I know when I've played around in Dryrun, I definitely try like all the things in the middle. So one of my favorite features of Dryrun is the scenario planning that you've got built in there. And one of the best cases for scenario planning that I found is ad related stuff. And so Meta,
Mm,
Google, they take the cash immediately, but those payouts they take a little bit
yeah.
time to come in. When you see brands like starting to try to scale ads, and it looks like it's working well, right? But they accidentally create this cash gap and this cash problem that puts them in a bind. Like how frequently does that happen? And does your tool like help people to see that before they make that mistake?
Yeah, it certainly does, and again, it takes a bit of that discipline to be able to put it all together and say, okay, is if I do these ads, is it actually going to be profitable? Is it actually going to make money? And most importantly, I guess from our perspective, is how long is it going to take till the money starts coming in and we're actually paying for this ad spend? Um, we've seen users do all sorts of interesting models around ad spend, and in fact, one I remember was a customer of ours, and they did a very basic forecast, and I don't remember the exact mechanics of it, but it was literally just comparing a dollar spent to predicted revenue, and they had so many scenarios it looked like a rainbow. It looked like it was a thread on a blanket. There were so many scenarios. It looked beautiful, but it was interesting once we were talking with them to see, like, oh, I get what you're doing though, because when you lay it all out, you can point to it and go, that's the one that's going to make us the most money for the least, like the least headache. And But generally I would recommend, again, like, don't try and boil the ocean, just forecast what's in your mind right now. Do what's my baseline here, and what if we do a spend, but then you start going, okay, but we have to have this inventory in hand, so what do we have to buy this other inventory? When will it go out the door? And take a look and see, like, does it actually make sense, or are you just burning more cash to sell more goods, but not actually surviving and growing and becoming more profitable?
Right. Yeah, and so that's a tie into our past couple episodes, Blaine, where we were talking about customer acquisition costs and how if you're spending a bunch in ads just to acquire somebody who's going to buy something one time only, that's probably not a very effective spend use. And so, Jay, that really ties into like critical CFO type thinking, right? How do you help founders decide when scaling ads is smart versus when it's going to starve the business? Like, are there strategic things that you do that help people to think around that?
Yeah, the first thing I tell them is ignore ROAS for a second. That's a trap. The first question is always the timing of the cash, not the profitability. I want to know when that ad spend leaves the bank, when the payouts land, and what else is coming in and out in that same window. We have to know that because all that impacts the cash flow at that moment. If scaling ads means fronting cash today, but the payout doesn't hit for 7, 14, 21 days, and you've got inventory deposits, you got freight payroll, and then other things hitting at that same time, you're not going to grow. You're starving at that point. So you got to watch that and know that. And what we could do is have cash-based guidelines. That's it. This is, you have a minimum cash buffer you put in place. And, that's where, you don't allow the business to cross it. And, you have that hard guideline. You map ad spend weekly against expected deposits, not against booked revenue, expected deposits. And, if cash drops below X, everything pauses. You stop it immediately. And, that is where the forecasts show and where they are so important. And Dryrun makes it visible. Our jobs as CFOs is to turn the visibility into rules. So founders can stop making emotional ad decisions and start scaling when it makes sense. And more importantly, when they can afford it.
Yeah, that is really important. And Jay, you mentioned a couple different things there that Blaine, I'm interested in your take on. Most founders, they don't get in trouble overnight, right? It's not like one day you're doing great, the next day you've got big problems. Those things creep up over time. And we've talked about on this show how important, and Jay just kind of alluded to it as well, how important a 13-week cash flow forecast can be. Why does that 13-week cash flow forecast change behavior so much compared to just watching the bank balance every day or looking at reports monthly? Like, Blaine, what's the real juice there?
There's nothing magic about 13 weeks because people always say, 13-week forecast. And I think sometimes business owners are like, I've heard this, I don't know why a magic 13 weeks. This is kind of 3 months. And it's sort of, it's that range where you can kind of get a sense for, like you said, it's like, the cost of acquiring a customer, and then when that customer comes in, how long is the sales cycle, and when are your deposits coming in, and when do you have to buy? And it's kind of a nice range, that 3 months out. Now, with a lot of customers or companies, obviously they're looking forward past that. But the further out you look, the further out it's like a weather forecast. It can be useful. You can kind of see the seasonality trends, but they get bigger picture. So, but even the next 30 days is going to be a lot more concrete than 60 days out and 90 days out. But what I love about saying, keep a 13-week forecast is it does help people that are living kind of week to week go, okay, here's a time frame that I can visualize and it makes sense, and it's like it's in the quarter, it's in the season, and it just sort of brings reality to the whole situation without being overwhelming.
Yeah, no, and we've talked a little bit about how that time frame. Yeah, sure, it's a little bit random, right? It probably came from some SEC reporting company that was using a quarter set, right? They were just looking at the next quarter and it happened to be 13 weeks. That's probably where it came from. But it is really reasonable because that 90 days, we've talked about it, right? That's your lead time for production from China. You know that in that time you can kind of forecast exactly what your rough sales are going to be. But Blaine, like you mentioned, once you get past that, you're starting to get in more and more and more uncertainty, and so it just becomes more challenging once you get farther out to guess right. And
Yeah.
that 13-week period like really does help the guesswork to kind of illuminate for you, right? What where you're going to be, right? And so instead of looking up one day and having that payroll coming at the end of the week, and looking like, oh, I have to pay how much now? If you have that 13-week forecast, you can kind of see 6 weeks ahead, 8 weeks ahead. Oh, it's going to be tight then. Maybe I can make some decisions now that can help me to make it through to that point without running into issues. Right. I think that cash flow forecasting to that degree is so critical for exactly that reason. And because it empowers you to make decisions with a little bit more knowledge than just what is my bank balance today and who do I have to pay tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then I think it also like gives you a lot more confidence because you can make that decision. You can say, hey, I know that if I have this much sales and my ROAS is this, then I'm going to be able to have this cash flow in the future that can allow me to make that $100,000 purchase that we talked about earlier in the show, or to purchase that extra inventory, maybe not 2 years worth, maybe a little bit more, so you can take advantage of a discount because you know that you can touch that cash flow because you know it's coming or you can expect that it's coming.
Mhm.
So that confidence to make those decisions and feel good about them, like it is really surprising how effective just having a working cash flow model is in allowing you to feel good about making those decisions that we talk about. Yeah, go ahead, Blaine.
Uh, I did want to sort of mention the value though too of going past that 13 week. So going out to
Yeah.
6 months, going out to 12 months. It's a very different thing when you're saying, "Hey, what's our 5-year, 10-year old?" Okay, that's a little different. But there is again kind of what we've seen with businesses, especially ones that have a lot of seasonality, is it's a little bit, I shouldn't just say seasonality because I've seen this with project-based businesses. In fact, I felt that before back 15, 20 years ago when I had a creative agency. And when you're busy and when you're making money, it feels like it's never going to end.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for a project-based business, a lot of times it's like, yeah, but you got to be out selling, right? And it's the same thing with an e-commerce. It's like you get to the holiday season and you're selling a ton and it feels like it's never going to end, but it will. And you still have these fixed costs. You still have payroll, you still have rent, you still have all of these other costs are coming. And to be able to see that 6 months, see that 12 months down the road, you can kind of go, oh yeah, we got a lot of expenses that are coming through every day, like every month. This is how much we need to stay in business through the dark days of winter or through the dry summer or whatever it is. And there's some that brings that reality back to make sure you've got that beachhead, like Jay, like you're saying, you've got dollars
Yeah.
on hand. It's like we can survive through that. And seeing is believing. Visualizing that really helps to make it feel real. Then it's never going to end, and we're just we're killing it today. Yeah, wait till August, right?
Well,
Right.
we've been saying for weeks now that every week you have to look at your 13-week forecast. That is what you're working from. That's your short-term plan. But as you're preparing for the next year, you're building your budget. You have to build out the cash flow that matches that budget. And anytime you experience a large swing, you need to update that because you need to see how it is impacted at the back end. And it might mean you need a larger line of credit or something like that, and all of that comes into play from that. And it's not set it and forget it either, but it's not every week. You can look at that when you review your financial statements on a monthly basis, but it comes down to that every Monday morning looking at that 13 and knowing what's happening. Now, question for you: it's Monday morning, you're looking at it, and then you get an email from one of your wholesalers, and they said, I know our payment's due on Friday, but we're not going to make it. What's next? What do we do?
Yeah, that's almost every Friday for a lot of businesses. Unfortunately,
Right.
it just
Right.
is, right.
And especially right now. I mean, everything's tightening up,
Yeah.
and cash is tight.
Yeah, and that's the it's if you're starting today, it's like, oh wow, like we've got maybe a 5-alarm fire here if we're trying to figure out how to make payroll. That's the sort of the reason to get going right away, and especially for businesses, if you go, well, we don't have a cash flow problem. Okay, get on this now, because you will at some point. Get on this now so that you see it happening, and you start to get the feel of, sometimes these guys are paying us late, and like you said, Jay, it's like you have that beachhead, like you have that nest egg sitting there to help you get over those humps that are going to come.
Yep.
And so you're not over committing, because you're like, if I look at it on paper right now, we are bang on. We're okay.
Yeah.
But let's do scenario B of the what if everybody paid late, or what if actually probably more like, what if 20% of our customers pay late?
Right.
What does that look like? And we recommend for a lot of companies, especially when they have that level of volatility, like maintain a worst, best, and likely scenario. And it's you just always have that. The best case can be sometimes, okay, we could deploy some capital. Well, this might be a good time to expand. But you always want to just keep a bit of an eye on that worst case scenario, because sometimes that happens. And you want the worst case scenario to be, at worst, we'll scrape by. You don't want, at worst, we are done. Best case scenario, we're scraping by, right? So you have to sort of expect the unexpected, model scenarios for the unexpected, and plan for the unexpected, because it's going to happen routinely.
Yeah, it's funny you say scraping by and trying to find the payroll. If I go back to my life prior to being in the accounting business, running a nutraceutical manufacturing company, and knowing that we were growing, and my wife says it best. It's like every other Friday, hey, I need another 20K. And it was like, okay, we're buying this piece of equipment. And it's like, no, actually, it's not 20, it's 50. And, it was, number one, have great relationship with your bankers. Because, we were doing that. I literally I basically had the loan application set up. All I had to do was drop numbers in. As soon as I turned one in, I had another one waiting there. Because we were just adding on, building our production line. And he's like, man, I wish all my customers were like you. Because, I had financials. I had everything laid out. But, just be prepared. That's the best thing in that situation, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be prepared in a number of ways. Like you said, have cash on hand, have a great relationship with your banker, have a line of credit, have it's like you got the forward line and the line and the linebacker, and then you got the D-backs, like you got everybody. Redundancy, because sometimes you're gonna fall all the way back on the safety, right? Like
Exactly.
And it's seeing it, and planning for it, and also keeping an eye on the worst case scenario, just to be able to know that we can weather it if we have to.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. So Jay, what other topics did we want to talk about, or what else do we need to highlight today?
I think we covered everything that was on our list. So I want to throw it to Blaine and just say, we talked. You're gonna give us a demo. We're gonna put into this, but if a founder is going to come across Dryrun, take it out for a spin, what should they do? What exactly do you recommend people do with the platform? What's the best way to use it? How are they going to get the most out of it?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, just come and talk with us, and we'll walk you through a demo. And we're going to want to, when we walk through a demo, actually, the big part of it is we want to learn about you, learn about your business, learn about your challenges, so that we can recommend some best practices for getting set up. And sometimes we will help you and do all of the setup for you. Just depends on your needs. but we want to figure out, like I said, not trying to boil the ocean, but what are the main problems, the main pinch points that you guys run into routinely, or potentially the highest risk ones. Let's just get on top of that first, and let's give you a visualization where it's simple, fast, and you can monitor the most important pulse of your business, and tackle some of the more involved stuff down the road. So it doesn't have to be difficult and long and challenging to get started. Um, like you guys have been saying over and over again, it's Monday morning. Every Monday, just see where you're at and look forward. The amount of risk that will leave your business, the amount you will lower your risk from doing nothing more than looking at this every Monday morning and having the, letting it seep into your brain so you're making those right decisions, can dramatically improve your chances of being a highly profitable and successful business.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
look at it before you look at the vanity metrics.
That's right. We
Yes.
talk about that a lot, right? It doesn't mean a whole lot to be $1 million seller if you're just going out of business next week,
Exactly.
because you don't have
Yeah.
any cash, right? I think that's a wonderful way to look at it, right? Is to be really thoughtful about doing small things at a time. We talk about that a lot on this show. Is we try to give you lots of different advice, but you don't need to do it all at once. You need to just take a little bit at a time, right? Make one change, one edit, one update, so that you're continuously improving, and tools like Dryrun can really take you that way. Jay, if you were to help, oh, go ahead, Blaine. Sorry.
I just did want to add in though that the vast majority of you founders out there are, you're a founder because you're passionate about what you're selling, what you're building. You're passionate about business, and I know a lot of you are not as comfortable with finance, and you don't try and do it by yourself. And so that is literally, I'm going to say what Jay and Chris do. That it having the tool, but if you're not using it, or if you are using it but you cannot sometimes spot what those trends and what those insights are telling you, that is it's just tragic, right? So bring in the pros and make sure you have that foundation for your business, because that's is probably the biggest dramatic difference. And I'm bringing this up, and I'm not just, it's not like you guys asked me to bring this up. I'm bringing this up because we've been in business a long time, and we have worked with a lot of founders, and I will tell you, it's a rarity. There are founders, there are business owners out there that have a really good knack for finance. It is very few, a very small percentage, and it's not something you necessarily should be spending a lot of your time on. The business owners that thrive have that support, and usually 99% of the time, the people that are driving Dryrun and making it really successful are the finance pros, especially the CFOs. That it's not about getting the transactions into the tool. It's being able to sit back, look at what's actually happening, and give some insight. And so I want to make sure that I mention that that it is critically important that you have somebody on your side that's helping you do that.
Yeah, and Blaine, that does agree, obviously, with exactly what our pitch is. We understand that the business owners, the founders, like you got to where you are because you're really good at what you were doing, right? You found a successful product. You've identified the way to source it, and what you really need is to be able to focus on that thing that you were really good at, and allow some technology, or a person who's utilizing technology, or whichever it may be, to take some of that burden off your plate, so that you can be armed with the right information to continue to make those critical decisions and make them to continue to drive your business forward, and not spend all of that time, that manpower, that mind power on evaluating all these things. That's exactly right, Blaine. We've talked about that before on the show as well, and so definitely lines up with exactly what our pitch is, and it's very nice that it lines up with what yours is as well.
Yeah, and conversation I had earlier today, it's not about the how to do it, but it's who can do it for you. And don't take everything on and get in the weeds with everything. Just do what you have to do as a founder. Get through your to-do list, put out the fires that you have to do, and then rely on your team around you for the rest of it.
Yeah. All right, Jay. Any final thoughts or anything to start a wrap up, or what else do we want to talk about today?
No, I really think that this is the key takeaway for founders listening. Tools like Dryrun don't replace judgment. They surface reality. And you get to see where the inventory, the ad spend, payroll, taxes, and all your payouts collide instead of discovering when it happens and then you start sweating. That's never fun.
Yeah, no. And just like we just talked about, right? That's where the human layer still matters. All that forecasting shows what could happen, what might happen. It's the strategy and the decisions that you actually make that actually do it, that actually make it happen. And so our role, like Blaine was talking about, our role as CFOs is taking that visibility and turning it into here's some decision points that you can make, and here's the impact that it's going to have for you. When should you place your PO? How big should it be? When should you push ads or pull back on ads? And how do you keep cash from being untouchable? Like, how much do you need to have in your reservoir back there to make sure that you're planning for taxes, for growth without guessing, for all of those things that we've been talking about today?
Yeah, so if you're a founder and you're profitable, but you're feeling stressed, remember, it's a timing issue. And if you want to beat that timing issue, check out Dryrun before it becomes a problem. And that's dryrun.com. And use it to understand your reality. Build strategy around reality. Yeah.
And then, of course, like Blaine said, partner with somebody like us to help you to do exactly that as well. Because profit tells a story about the past. Cash flow decides whether or not you survive in the future. Blaine, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today?
Well, I think we've covered a wide range. I think you hit the nail on the head. Timing. That's the issue. Being able to predict that timing and having someone help you and stay on top of that for you to help predict that timing is what's going to help you make those right decisions and thrive and grow, and also just sleep better at night. I know it sounds like a cliche, especially these days. That is literally what's happening. I think it's a real challenging time for almost everybody that we talk to out there right now.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right. Yeah, and with a little bit of levity, it's also the week right before the Super Bowl. You made a bunch of references to linebackers and safeties. Blaine, are you excited for what's happening this weekend, or what are you feeling good about it? Are you excited? Do you care?
I think the teams that are in there they're not my team, so it's like, whatever. I cannot believe New England somehow made it back, though. I will say that. How did that happen? That sort of blows my mind. But that said, I'm looking forward to sitting down and watching the game anyway. It'll be fun.
So when does the ad spend from the Super Bowl hit the bank account?
Probably already has.
Probably already has. You're right.
Probably 3 years ago. They have to book it way in advance.
For sure.
I am a 49er fan, and so the Seahawks are. I'm not really excited to see them there, and then I don't think really anybody really wants to see the Patriots there outside of the northeast of the United States here. So. Who knows? But I do think the Super Bowl becomes a great time to get together, right? To spend some time with people and maybe to catch some advertising, right? So to see the reaping of the ad spend rewards.
That is exactly it. So. You are right on there.
Well, Blaine, thank you so much for taking time to jump on the show today to talk to us about cash flow. For e-commerce owners and operators, like cash flow is obviously one of, if not the very most relevant metric. And so having tools and that allow us as strategists to be able to help business owners make those key decisions that we've been talking about, like is so helpful. And so we're so thankful that you could make time to talk about that with us today. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the future. Jay, any last words today?
No, I just want to say thank you, Blaine. That was a lot of great information and very useful information that will be used every Monday.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Right.
Thanks everyone for spending time with the show. Obviously, if you've got questions for Blaine, leave them in the comments. Go to dryrun.com. The team over there is super, super responsive to feedback. So if you ever have any questions or concerns, just let them know. And they're very good about making sure that it's seen, heard, and felt. So if you've got questions about cash flow overall and you want to talk to an advisor, let us know. That's exactly what we do. And so leave some notes, leave some comments about cash flow problems you've run into or successes that you've had. We love to see both the good and the bad. And then tune in next week for whenever we talk about, I think we're finishing up our customer acquisition cost summary. So we'll be right back here on the Rocks, the e-commerce hour. Thanks everybody. I'm Chris. He's Jay. He's Jay, and he's Blaine. And so thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Bye,
May
everyone.
your favorite team win the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe the cars finally hit the track tomorrow.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah,
Maybe,
there we go.
Maybe get some racing going.
All right.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
See you, everybody. Bye.